Hi, Ian. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi, Doug.
Hello. Hi there. You've probably heard about this already, but my life has been destroyed by the loan charge, and HMRC continually harassing me for more than £100,000 over the past 12 years, to the point where my marriage has blown up. I'm now having to sell my home, and I had considered at one point taking my own life. In the recent loan charge debate in Parliament, cross-party MPs criticised government and HMRC, and the current Labour government position was that the Morse review mustn't be the last word on the subject. With over 40,000 unresolved cases and a risk of more people taking their own lives, will you ask the government why they came up with a law to ignore rich promoters linked to the Conservative Party and instead go after those they missold to? And will you commit that if Labour win the election, you will announce a genuinely independent review and seek a resolution to the whole loan charge scandal?
Doug, I think you spoke to us, didn't you, on the evening of that debate in the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago, and I was so struck by what Doug had said, and you can hear the emotion in his voice, that I wanted him to speak to you. So this is not a spontaneous call. We spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. What can you say to offer him any words of comfort at all?
So, Doug, first of all, thank you for being so brave and speaking about your own experience. I can tell by your voice and the story you're telling that it can't be easy for you to be that honest about your own personal situation. But we know also that you're not the only one in this situation. There are already 10 people who we know of who have taken their lives because of this loan charge scandal. And for people who don't know what the loan charge is, it's when workers, often contractors, were encouraged to participate in a scheme, and then years later, in many cases, were told that that scheme was not lawful and are now being pursued by the HMRC, often for tens of thousands, in your case for £100,000. And that's money that frankly, most of these people don't have, because we're not talking about the biggest earners here. We're talking about ordinary people on ordinary wages, but who were contractors and were encouraged by their accountants to participate in these schemes. And you're absolutely right, Doug, that HMRC seem to be coming after the people who were missold these products rather than the people who were misselling them. And that is a real scandal. Now, my colleague, I think it was Darren Jones.
When you say mis-selling, let's be clear, HMRC approved these schemes.
No, absolutely, yes.
And they were using them themselves. That's the irony of this.
Yeah, and my colleague, Darren Jones, who spoke, I think, in the debate that you mentioned, Doug, and Ian as well, that he was really clear in that the way that HMRC is pursuing this money is just not right, that the government did a review, but it's clearly not good enough, and the way that people are being treated is not acceptable. We continue to press the government to look at these cases and to ensure that the HMRC are more proportionate and don't pursue people who cannot afford to pay for a scheme that was approved by the HMRC. And we'll continue to do that. And look, I really hope that by the election, the government has listened to people like you, Doug. But if they don't, it will fall to Labour to make sure that people like you and many, many others as well are treated with some respect and some leniency.
How can loan charge victims be confident that the Labour Financial Secretary to the Treasury will not be hoodwinked by HMRC in the way that the last 5 Conservative ministers have been, who've all gone completely native and see this as a genuine tax avoidance, when anybody who knows anything about it can see that it isn't? I mean, this is the Post Office, and it could be the Post Office writ large, couldn't it?
Well, look, Darren spoke in that debate, so he spoke in Parliament and made that commitment. If Labour win the election, he will be the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and I will be the Chancellor. And we've made those commitments, as has my colleague James Murray, who would be responsible for this, with the Minister responsible for tax in government. And I think you're right, Doug, to talk about, who are the real culprits here. It's the people who missold products, and people like you are the innocent victims in this sort of war of attrition with HMRC now.
Would you give a commitment to have an independent inquiry? Because the government's one, the Morse Review, was effectively the government marking its own homework, a bit like the Post Office did.
We have called on the government to do that inquiry. We hope that it won't take as long as getting to the next Labour government.
But if it does?
But if it is, yeah, we will do that.
An independent review.
But let's put the pressure on the government to do this now, because with a lot of these things, it's the government just push things into the long grass, and we must encourage them to act, because many people like Doug have waited too long
for this. I accept that, but I think a lot of people listening to this, and this will go all over the internet, I can assure you, I think they would want to know that you're committed to, if it isn't sorted out by the election, an independent review rather than HMRC marking itself.
Yeah, we will do that review, but I hope that the government crack on so that people like Doug and many, many others do not have to wait that long.
Doug, I hope that's reassuring for you. Thank you very much indeed.